they became friends discussing decks and strategy and their matches before. And this is the second time they have met in this event. Hotform was able to win the first time, but it was a very, very close match.
Yeah, it was extremely close. Hotform here. Jap was really struggling with his tempo match, and I'm kind of curious to see if Hotform can perform better.
That's actually a theme we've sort of seen both Jab and Hotform playing this tempo mage deck, and it has kind of been a little inconsistent for the both of them.
That's always been the case.
While you are playing a deck with Flamewaker and Arcane Missiles and Unstable Portal, that's just something that kind of happens sometimes.
Yeah, it's his own decision to play that deck, and it can be extremely powerful, but it is inconsistent, like you mentioned.
Yes. Now, just a quick recap of how things are rolling through today. We have this match for you guys, and it will be followed by our last match of the this pre-BlizzCon tournament. So far we have 2 European players who have qualified in the previous days. We have 2 Chinese players who qualified in the previous days. And today, so far, 2 Asia-Pacific players have qualified. But we have yet to have a qualifying player from the Americas region. Hotform perhaps can be the first candidate here. And followed up, Purple will have his chance as well.
Yeah, both Canadian players. Unfortunately, is out of the running for the BlizzCon Championship. Fireback. This tempo mage deck, and Neilyo is playing warrior. And this is interesting because I think some of the pick dynamic in terms of the order of what decks you choose to against Neilyo's lineup, and didn't think Neilyo would play warrior first, wanted to try and get his rogue deck out of the way.
Neilyo tries to go warrior first now.
Because you know that I know that going on here.
Yeah. Well, this opening with the random-based mage deck thing has not worked out today so far.
So this is one of the matchups. Form does play 2 copies of Mirror Image in his deck, and that's a card that if he is minions from Neilyo's weapons.
Yeah, this game is basically, do you have fire? Maybe it denies that a little bit.
And in this game, Neilyo is the first player. He has a hand of all expensive legendary minions and a big game hunter, which isn't particularly good against Hotform's deck, while Hotform has opening hand of
really looking for the weapon too.
You see Hotform with a little bit of smile and stretch there as Neilyo.
Mage, because you don't have any other spells, and even if you get ones that are somewhat mediocre. Turn 2 Mana Worm Coin Scientist.
That I think is the best way to use your and it looks like he is going to choose that. I think that picking up the second Mad Scientist may have somewhat informed that decision as well, because he does have another play on turn 3 other than the Flamewaker, which you would just be exposing to
here. He knows that even if Neilyo has that Fiery War Axe, he can only kill 1 minion with it. Next turn there's going to be another minion coming out from Hotform, and there's going to be that 1 extra minion going for face each turn.
I mean, how many worthless cards and cards of 6 mana can you possibly draw in a row?
I take offense to
Total mana cost of Neilyo's hand right now.
it is probably more than the total mana cost of Hotform's deck. It's not actually.
Oh,
but
just creatures? Maybe.
Minion-wise, it could be. It very well could be.
Because there are a ton of spells in Hotform's deck.
That's true. Yeah, Ysera, Grom, Justicar Trueheart, and Baron Geddon here in Neilyo's hand. All cards that are very, very powerful if you are able.
Yeah. Neilyo with absolutely nothing to play here, but still taking his time to think about the future turns and maybe try to bluff his opponent a tiny bit.
Yeah, Sorcerer is pretty nice, but I think I'd like to see Mad Scientist first, because if you have exactly 2 mirror entities, you want to get 1 out.
Your overall efficiency.
Yep.
Neilyo picking up a Slam, not. Again, even it is a cheap card, not really a card that's great in this position. He could potentially slam the Mad Scientist, but neither of the other minions actually die to it. I wouldn't be surprised to see him slam one of those mana worms, just kind of dig for extra cards. He needs to find something.
You slam here, what are you expecting to play?
It's not that you're expecting to play something that's
nothing, but
turn necessarily.
The hand is so horrible right now. I feel like he has to go with the slam just to draw and try to find something better for next turn.
Yeah, and that is what Neilyo chooses to do. He wants to be able to immediately remove that mana worm and use this mana efficiently, playing the 3 cost. Which it looks like we're going to see from Hotform, which is Sorcerer's Apprentice and Frostbolt your face. Game is not a strategy that you typically employ, but against a warrior deck that is going into turn 4, where you're
so few options already.
Well, you're afraid of something like Death Spike.
Also, using that Frostbolt right here, it buffs both of the mana worms, so
right.
Shield slam to remove the 2 biggest threats on the board.
So that slam did draw Neilyo to this 4 mana play this turn, which allows him to significantly reduce the incoming damage and gain a little bit of armor.
Some reason to decide whether you want to kill both mana worms or a mana worm and the Sorcerer Apprentice.
That's true. That is true. Picking specifically which targets you'd like to kill is important. I believe Neilyo does have Cruel Taskmaster in his deck, which could be some incentive to leave up the 1 health minion. Because he is so far behind, it's possible he just kind of needs to play to get lucky. He kind of needs
do you want to kill the mana worm or the Sorcerer Apprentice?
So the Sorcerer's Apprentice... the same amount of damage as the mana.
Flame Strike, not a helpful draw.
Yeah,
but
Hotform on that draw, and because he's unwilling to play the Flame Wave, he's actually not developing much of a board. He actually lost more of a board than he was able to develop into this game, but 16 life is fairly low. This
Smith, Big Game Hunter, kind of okay-ish, but the Big Game Hunter just going to trade with the Mad Scientist.
And we are seeing Hotform's draw there, that the Flame Strike. That's a card that's not particularly common in Tempo Mage decks because of a little bit hiccup in the development of your curve.
Yeah. I think he's just looking for an efficient card to play along with the Flame Waker, possibly a Frostbolt, even like I think a Mirror Image would be pretty good.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That still remains a very powerful. Is getting to the point now that we're at the reasonably and potentially lose all.
What do you think about pinging your own Scientist after killing the Armor Smith?
It's an interesting play, and it's a heads-up play, noting that your opponent can potentially play a large minion next turn. I actually like that quite a bit. I think that potentially attacking both of his minions in
minions, and most of the minions in Warrior deck happen to be quite big. Let's see if he goes.
I think
he's going to do it.
In a position where if he does play one of those large minions in his hand, will give
kill the other Mad Scientist to deny the follow-up Mirror Entity, and he can play Big Game Hunter, I guess. It's not great, but I guess.
It's still, I actually don't know that
Be some kind of brawl. Shields blocks, maybe, just exhaust Hotform on minions. To 17. He also won't be able to use the
to the Mad Scientist. He would go to 15, plays the Big Game Hunter. He leaves his opponent with 9 damage on board. That would actually just be lethal with the Fireball in his hand. Though it's also possible that he just can't play around Fireball. It's possible that he is in a position where he needs to try and avoid that. He does choose to just take out the Mana Worm, currently the biggest threat.
I guess this means he's not playing the Big Game Hunter.
Yeah.
Like
and in that case, you're just kind of hoping the Hotform draws that Mirror Entity.
Yeah, Hotform really close to lethal here.
Mirror Image, though, as we were saying before, that help protect his minions from the weapon, but it also just does 2 damage with that Flame Waker. Is this lethal? It's at least close. I think he's 2 damage off lethal with this if he goes to the fireball to the face.
That's right, 2 off
He
lethal.
chooses not to.
Saves the fireball for later on. And, oh, Neilyo trying
can't
another
play anything.
minion.
Yeah.
No.
Neilyo, this mirror entity is very powerful in this situation, preventing Neilyo from developing any of those large minions that have been in his hands since the beginning of the game.
Shield main is the only one that kind of zeroes out, but you're still dead to Fireball. And if you were playing around Fireball last turn, like you're feeling.
This entire game, his opening hand was very bad. Didn't get that much better.
What the mage needs, you just get a bit far ahead at the start, get some face damage in, and then at that stage of the game, the exact stage we're seeing right here, it becomes so difficult to play around every possibility that the mage might have, even like a 1-card option like Fireball.
Right, but he is going to find out that there's a Fireball waiting for him in Hotform's hand, and we are going to... Oh, and there's another one.
Double fireballs.
When it rains, it pours. Fire, at least.
Should he have used the one he drew from the top to maybe try to tilt?
Rattled. Oh, he got lucky. He drew the Fireball. It's the sort of thing that, again, some players can throw them off their game.
All right, well, Hotform grabs his first win against Neilyo from the Asia-Pacific region. So as we mentioned, every region except the Americas has had 2 players qualify already. So on one hand, you know, we kind of want to see a bit of a balance at BlizzCon, which might be achieved at Hotform and Purple end up qualifying through. But if any of their opponents take game over them, the Asia-Pacific will actually have the most qualified players for the BlizzCon finals.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of players coming into this were saying they felt like Europe and North America were the strongest regions, but there was a lot of question marks in the air about the strength of China and Asia-Pacific because they don't really get an opportunity to play in as many tournaments that at least we in the Western scene have an opportunity to watch. But they have shown that they have a lot of very strong players.
Yeah, not many players actually know how good these Asia-Pacific players are, and now we have seen it over and over again. They keep taking these games and they keep playing well.
I mean, just last year, we saw Titular Celestial make it all the way to the finals of BlizzCon, where he eventually lost to Firebat, and he has continued to have a lot of success over the course of the previous year.
Yeah, and this tournament alone has reminded that is still the case. So on that note, let's just hear a few more thoughts from Neilyo to better understand the situation.
At first, my family didn't believe that my trip was paid by Blizzard. Like, they didn't believe that someone paid me to travel around the world to play Hearthstone. They believe that I was just lying, to play more Hearthstone. Like, I just do whatever I want, and Hearthstone is what I want to do and what I'm doing here at BlizzCon. I want to win.
All right, well, he wants to take all the goods, as does every other player participating right now.
If he wants to win a big tournament, this is the biggest one.
Yeah, I mean, this is the biggest stage that you can play on in Hearthstone. And Neilyo hoping to make his way to BlizzCon next week, but he's got to win 3 games in a row.
And the matches here are really polarizing. We have the Rogue, quite good against the Paladin and the Hunter, I think, but very bad against the Warrior. And we have the Druid, perhaps in the exact opposite situation there. So the way that these matchups go down is going to dictate the results really heavily.
Yeah, Hotform previously was really hoping to dodge that Warrior deck with his Rogue. He still has to win with that Rogue, so he I believe, mostly wanted to play it against the Hunter, if I recall correctly, was where he felt like his best matchup was, or perhaps this Paladin deck. But he goes with his Druid for this game.
And it is against Paladin, so it seems like it's a favorable matchup for Neilyo rather than Hotform. Whereas if the Rogue was against the Paladin, it had a much higher chance to beat the Paladin, and then eventually the Warrior had to beat the Druid, which was slightly problematic. Even more so now that we noticed that Harrison Jones is part of the Druid list.
Yeah, we've seen a few Harrison Jones in this tournament, but they haven't been all that effective. in general. And here Hotform does have it, but it's not even an obvious decision to keep it in the starting hand because it's so important to find those extra mana cards.
One of the issues playing against the secret Paladin deck specifically is that you need to deal with their early aggression. A card like Harrison Jones is a powerful card to remove something like True Silver Champion or the Ashbringer from Tyrion Fordring, but against the Secret Paladin decks, you can just fall so far behind in the early turns of the game because of their aggression that even that marginal advantage is just not enough to win.
You can even just fall so far behind from the Mysterious Challenger.
Right.
The main difference between the Secret Paladin and just the regular mid-range type of Paladin deck is mid-range Paladin just plays usually one thing at a time. Here's something. Here's another thing. And if that thing's a True Silver, then Harrison Jones is spectacular. But when it comes to the Secret Paladin, it's like, here's 6 things. So Harrison Jones just doesn't really keep up with all the little things you have to deal with.
Yeah, a dreadful hand from Hotform here. That big Game Hunter might be valuable later on if there's something like Avenge landing on the Mysterious Challenger. But for now, the only playable card seems to be the Innervate. There's nothing to innervate.
You could innervate at the big Game Hunter.
He could.
Probably won't be a play that we see, but...
I don't think that's even impossible. We know that Hotform is running double Big Game Hunter in his deck, which I think actually helps him against the Mysterious Challenger issue. If he's able to clear up the board going into turn 6, Big Game Hunter is the most valuable card you can have because it triggers, the Avenge triggers on the Mysterious Challenger after it gets down.
Yeah, if you... that's the key, though. If you're able to keep them to having a clear board when they do play the Challenger, because... Oh, and that's a pretty strong draw from Hotform there. He needed something, and he finds the piloted Shredder. So that's going to allow him to be the one who is ahead on the board.
Yeah, pretty nice draw there for Hotform. Wild Growth would have also been great, but having something to play here over the hero power is excellent.
Yeah, you kind of want to activate your Avenge with the Muster for Battle, but if you do, you delay your Mysterious Challenger by 1 turn. And Mysterious Challenger, the earlier it's played, the more insane it is. So it's really a tough decision here, as the coin can represent so much win potential in this matchup.
Yep, it's likely he's going to hold on for the coin, for the Challenger. Here, Shielded Minibot, yeah, I mean, why not? That's often the best possible turn 2 that you can make. Neilyo, normally when we see players take their time like this, they might be seriously considering the Monster for Battle, but in Neilyo's case, we have seen him take a long time and then end up with the obvious play anyway.
Yeah, the Shielded Minibot makes it so you can Muster for Battle and use that to finish off the Shredder next turn, and that's unlikely to be punished. It's just against the Druid, you never know for sure.
So Force of Nature, a second copy, certainly not what Hotform is looking for here, but
no, not at all.
He is able to get this Minibot off the board, and he wants to do this before there's a second minion because it's likely that that secret is something like Avenge.
That was a pretty aggressive play. We have to keep in mind that Neilyo, alongside most of the players from the Asia region, are running double Redemption.
Yeah.
So the chance that you play a Redemption to go into a Shielded Minibot is very high, and if Redemption did come out here and he had the Muster, it probably would have ended the game.
Yeah, Hotform would have been heavily punished for that, but he took his chances and it kind of worked out.
There are so many different situations that can come up given the variety of secrets the Paladin deck does play, that in many cases there's going to be a play that will punish you for whatever you do. So you just have to kind of figure it out, walk through it, and be like, okay, this is the specific line I'm going to take, and use the information you gain from the actions that you take in the game to try to sort things out.
Yep, Neilyo once again burning some rope, goes for the Muster for Battle, and like he has, take out the shield, the Piloted Shredder here. See what pops out.
Oh, dear.
Well, that might not be that bad.
We have seen... Oh, well, look at Hotform's hand. That's pretty bad.
I think you can just Wild Growth here.
You can. It's an option.
I don't think it's a bad option.
There's not much else he can do.
I think you'd rather Wild Growth than have something that is not Lore Walker Cho in play.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of.
And here, with that Avenge that Neilyo has up, Hotform is going to be punished if he does decide to hero power and kill one of those minions.
It looks like he's again taking that risk, though.
Well, no, he may just be going to the face.
I don't think so.
No, he does kill a minion. Okay.
Takes the chance that this time around it is going to be that Avenge. It could be a competitive spirit in that case there that could have worked out, but it happens to be the Avenge, and Neilyo has that 4-3 on the board right now.
And now Neilyo does have, he has that wild growth. He could wild growth and
back.
play mini-bot this turn. Well, well, he can kill the Cho.
Oh, that's right.
Because
he
of
can
the
kill
advantage,
the Cho and
he
then
can kill
wild growth.
Cho and then wild growth, which will enable him to play Mysterious Challenger without even using his coin next turn.
Yeah, that seems like easily the strongest play here.
Yeah, quite powerful indeed. Well, it's easy to predict the row, but at this stage, I guess every single turn Neilyo has been considering his option for a long time.
I mean, it's definitely a variety of options he does have, particularly with the coin. I mean, he could choose to even just coin Lotheb this turn.
That just feels bad because if you do that, you don't really have much of a power play next turn. While Wild Growth Shield and Minibot when you're ahead really is quite fine.
Well, he could potentially play Coghammer and Minibot next turn as well. So I like this
Base.
play.
He's going to keep
he's
the
just going
Cho
base.
around.
Okay, interesting. I think his thought okay. I think his thought process here is that he thinks that if Hotform uses mana to continue wild growthing rather than actually playing things that impact the board, that he's going to be just ahead. And that one of Hotform's best ways to get back from this position is something like Force of Nature. And that would, with the Cho on the board, Force of Nature would give Neilyo a Force of Nature, which would allow him to press his advantage.
Interesting decision to deal that 2 extra damage to the Cho. I kind of like it, because now it's easier for him on the following turns to get rid of it if he needs to.
Yeah,
absolutely.
If things go badly.
Yeah.
Well, I still think we're going to see the Mysterious Challenger here. It's hard to top that. And maybe even the Zombie Chow really doesn't seem too bad.
He'd have to use his coin for that, which would mean he'd have to clear Cho. He might just want to do that this turn, but I think given his line of play, he wants to leave that Cho in play and just give himself the opportunity to kill it later on if he so chooses.
Yeah.
I imagine that we may see him just clear off this this keeper and then just play Mysterious Challenger.
Yeah, I really think that he's going to keep the Cho around since he chose to do it last turn.
All right, well, if we do see that play, the Big Game Hunter is going to have 50% chance of being very successful.
Yeah, if Hotform does choose to use his hero power attack, that would trigger the Noble Sacrifice that would come from the Mysterious Challenger and then the Avenge. And that could be the window that Hotform
The thing
needs to
is,
get back.
Neilyo knows that Hotform has 2 Big Game Hunters.
Just
Again,
give him the coin right back.
not too worried about the Cho.
I think because he knows that Hotform has 2 Big Game Hunters, he's not worried about giving his opponent a coin because it's really just more important that he doesn't get tempoed out by a BGH here. Having that extra target on the board makes that a little bit less likely.
Absolutely. The coin here also just gives the coin back to Neilyo. He knows that it is difficult for Hotform to do anything to get rid of that Lore Master Cho in play, and leaving it there does mean that, again, those Force of Natures, Savage Roar, all of these cards, Hotform can play them, but Neilyo would just get a copy.
Hotform getting a Darnassus Aspirant. Not exactly what he was looking for.
No, not quite.
And Hotform's hand looked bad earlier on. It looked even worse when that Cho came down, and he is under a lot of pressure right now.
Yeah, he has to just hero power here and hope that the Avenge lands on that Mysterious Challenge to have some kind of like reasonable play with the big hammer.
Yeah.
If it does, he's really not in that bad shape. We have to keep in mind he's at 25 and his opponent has the Cho on the board. He's basically at 30. So if BGH can land, if the Avenge does go on the 6-6, that is the turn of the game that Hotform needs.
Yep.
No. Oh man, are we going to see a coin Force of Nature?
I believe we might. Oh, I think. I wonder if Hotform roped here. We saw a look of exasperation from
shaking his
Hotform.
head. Yeah, I think he might have missed another.
Yeah, that's one of the things playing in Secret Paladin, because of the animation times of the. Oh, and yes, he actually just totally missed his attack.
Man.
That was an absolute disaster of a turn I
I think there's lethal now.
I think that might just
Easy
be.
lethal.
He's Force of Nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 13, 19 in play, plus the...
19, 26.
Is he just not going to
He
kill
has
it?
2 over.
Just going for the extended VM.
All right, and Neilyo.
Extended DM.
Neilyo takes that
Okay.
game. And one of the things about a card like Lore Walker Cho, it creates these awkward situations that requires players to do things that are kind of out of their comfort zone, not necessarily things they've practiced. And there, Hotform had to work through everything and didn't quite have time to make his play once he reached his decision, thanks to the animation times of the secrets.
I mean, even if he did have the time to kill off the 6-6 there with a Force of Nature, yeah, he would have died that turn, but he was extremely far from winning. The only chance he really had was the big game hunter being able to land on the mysterious challenger. If that happened, he was actually, you know, challenging the board in a reasonable way. He may have had to burn Savage Roar to actually kill off his Lore Walker Cho, which could have ended very badly in a few turns afterwards.
Absolutely.
But not necessarily. I feel like if the big game hunter came out, he could have won that game, and it wouldn't have been that unlikely.
Yeah, he definitely would have still had a chance, but it would have been tough. I would have still favored Neilyo over Hotform in that situation, even if the Avenge landed on this challenger.
Yeah, it was a very rough spot. Neilyo got off to an excellent start, and Hotform didn't quite have the start he needed.
All right, well, Neilyo evens out the set. It is 1-1 with that victory, and we have a few more thoughts from our recent winner.
It was very exciting to compete in 2 qualifier, Southeast Asia and APAC, because I like to travel a lot. And I also had an advantage because I was in the top 8 in Southeast Asia standing, so I had 2 buys. I just had to win a few games to get into Southeast Asia qualifier and a few more games to get into APAC. So that was not challenging at all. That was very exciting for me.
And game 3 is underway. Now, Neilyo got the better side of the matchup, I guess, mind game / RNG, because it is a combination of those two, I suppose. Will it happen again? Now it is even more polarizing with the Paladin out, as the Druid really wants to go against the Warrior and really does not want to go against the Hunter, while the Rogue wants to do the exact opposite. Actually, the Rogue kind of wanted to beat up the Paladin before it ended up grabbing that win. So the Rogue was in much worse of a spot than it was before the last match.
Yeah, certainly. And I was about to say, I expect Hotform to play his Rogue here, because if Hotform were to play his Druid, and Neilyo managed to play his Warrior in 1, or played the Hunter in 1, that would mean that Hotform would have to beat the Warrior deck with his Rogue deck.
Which is not going to happen.
Which, yeah, that's such a bad matchup for him.
So it is very reliant on this game here. Even though it is 1-1, if the Rogue loses, it'll have to go up against the Warrior and challenge extreme odds. But I think Hotform here is favored. Neilyo is playing a fairly aggressive Hunter list. From what I remember, I think he was playing something like hybrid-ish Hunter.
Yeah, we do see that Argent Horse Rider in his hand, which is indicative of less of a mid-range build, more of a hybrid-style build, a little bit more aggressive than the Dr. Boom versions like we see Jab play.
Yeah. But the Rogue can certainly deal with that. If you get a good board clear, if you get a punishing backstab or SI7 opener, if you get like the right piece of the puzzle in the opening sequences of the game, the Rogue can just shut down the aggression in a very big way.
Yep, and Hotform did get the coin and the SI agent to start things off.
Neilyo with Web Spinner. This is one of the more mid-rangey cards. But he has a pretty good opening here. Web Spinner.
He has a good 1, 2, 3, and if Vile Teacher comes down, Unleash goes for the win.
And the bow is pretty key as well, because
in this matchup, it's one of the best cards. Because
the Rogue deck does use cards like SI Agent to try to get ahead. The coin SI Agent turn 2 to kill something on Neilyo's side of the board is one of Hotform's best reactions to an opening from Neilyo. But that bow will be able to take that out, and he actually has a couple of minions that are not particularly great targets for that SI Agent.
So much so that he might just not do that.
It's true.
Like, would you really consider SI7ing a Haunted Creeper? I don't know. That's really something to think about.
I'd potentially kill a Web Spinner.
Good, but no. It seems so weak, because it only gives the Hunter more power.
It's true. Yeah, on the Creeper, certainly.
Well, with the draw B, that looked like a low-cost card. It is a Fan of Knives. That could be pretty good.
Where do you see these cards coming off? I only ever see them when they actually go into the hand field at the top.
Right on the corner, you see them flip around just a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I have not trained myself to look for that just yet, but maybe I'll learn someday.
Well, maybe my lack of sleep is just producing some hallucinations. Well, Mad Scientist seems like a stronger play than the Creeper from Neilyo's side, but it is one that can be countered far more easily.
Yeah, I think if you're in Neilyo's position, you're trying to think of, okay, well, what is the best thing that Hotform can do here? And one of the best things is that coin SI agent. So I would not be surprised to see him play the Creeper, despite the Scientist being the more straightforwardly powerful play.
Yeah, it is more value in the creature, and you get the synergy with a secret for your bow next turn.
Yeah, so playing the Scientist here, even though the coin SI deals with the Scientist, the bow is the perfect answer to that agent.
So you think the Mad Scientist is better just because you can answer it?
I like the Scientist just because of the bow in his hand. If he didn't have the bow, then it wouldn't be quite as good.
We do see Hotform pick up a preparation, which, while strong, not necessarily what he's looking for in this particular moment, he's going to use his coin SI Agent to remove the Mad Scientist.
This guy's
It still looks fine. Preparation is a card that often is very powerful in conjunction with spell damage, which he does have.
Yes.
He has in the form of the Blood Mage and in the form of the Azure Drake.
Neilyo picking up an excellent play for his next turn with that piloted Shredder. I have to imagine we'll see the Eaglehorn Bow take down the SI Agent to maintain the board presence that Neilyo is looking for.
Yep, seems fairly obvious. The weapon's still going to have another judge in it, so if there was another 3-drop coming out from Hotform like a Farseer or Second Agent, you could just deal with that as well. Pilot Shredder perfect for the next turn.
And these players, they did face each other before. They've also certainly been watching each other's games, at least when they found out they were going to have a rematch, to be sure they know the contents of each deck. I don't quite recall exactly which traps Neilyo was playing with when we saw him play earlier.
Yeah, it was quite a few days since then. I do recall there at least being freeze traps. I don't know if they were a mix of freeze traps, but we'll have to see. Overall, though, these players are fairly close. They're just kind of acquaintances in the world of Hearthstone. They have ran up against each other many times on ladder, and from that, you know, they've talked a little bit about their strategies, and that kind of gives them a little bit more insight into what each one is playing. Now, the Hyenas is a really fun card. This is a card that, you know, in the early world of Hearthstone, people actually played this because you had so many disposable beasts, and now with Unleash in hand, you know, that situation might arise again.
Yeah, it can be quite powerful. Rogue usually doesn't get all that many minions on the board unless there's a Violet Teacher spawning those 1/1 tokens.
But this turn, I have to imagine we'll see that Pilot Shredder come down. Shredder, one of the cards that has been responsible for at least something of a decline in the popularity of Rogue. The fact that there are sticky minions like the Shredder that are much more difficult for the Rogue to efficiently remove causes them some difficulty if they don't have a card like Sap to just bounce it back to the hand.
Yeah, I remember when Druid was dominating Control Warrior, it was largely because you could like Spectral Knight and the Warrior would have to take 12 damage removing it.
Spectral Knight was great.
That's basically what Shredder does most of the time.
It's been a while since we've seen Spectral Knights being played.
Sadly. That was a cool card.
I loved me a Spectral Knight. All right, so Hotform does use the Blood Mage Thalnos to trigger the combo on Eviscerate, allow him to take out the Shredder,
very
and then
aggressive
Preparation
there.
Fan. He just wants to get the board clear, I believe.
Yeah, and I think he wants to pop the freeze trap on that 1/1 minion.
Yeah, this creates an interesting situation where the Blood Mage is either going to deal with the bow or the freezing trap.
Oh, and we mentioned about how Doctor might not be in the deck, but there it is. It does seem to be like a fairly true list for mid-range Hunter.
Yeah, just a little bit of extra aggression from those Argent Horse Riders. I'm curious if we might see the Hyena into Unleash this turn.
This turn?
It clears that, protects your trap, and you get a 4-power minion in play.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not that bad, actually.
It's actually pretty good. It is vulnerable to a possible Azure Drake into Backstab, unfortunately, for Neilyo. But he's unlikely to find a great opportunity to use it.
You'd have to think if Prep Fan was used, that Backstab doesn't exist in the hand.
That's a good point.
That is, yeah, that's definitely...
He's not going to Unleash just yet. Going to use that bow to get rid of the Blood Mage. Let's see what Hotform picks up. Oil. A little bit early for an oil.
And then Backstab.
There is the Backstab. They were going to be punished for that play, I suppose.
Yep. And we do see the Backstab take out the Hyena before it can grow bigger, feasting on the other dead beasts. Another kill command for Neilyo. That's pretty powerful, but unfortunately he's going to just need to use it to remove this Azure Drake, I think.
Does he? He has the trap and a 7-mana Azure Drake in the hand of a Tempo Rogue. It's really worthless card.
I believe he does know that Hotform has South Sea Deckhand in his deck.
That is true.
So I think that he may want to protect his freezing trap using that kill command. He doesn't really have another play this turn either.
If he had another play, I think he would have seen the other play made, but you're absolutely right. I think kill command has to be played, but I do think he's actually considering just pointing it at the Rogue's face.
Yeah, but considering the rest of the hand, he does have that Dr. Boom for turn 7, so removing the spell power makes it more difficult for Hotform to deal with that. If, let's say, the Dr. Boom was an Arcane Golem, then he would also have more reach to end the game faster.
Yeah, Neilyo has the tools with that Dr. Boom to play for a little bit of a longer game. And this also does allow him to use his hero power this turn, getting a little bit of extra damage and going to 24 for Hotform. Still at a reasonably healthy life total.
Yeah, I mean, just being 1/6 down is not really too big of a deal here.
Oh, it's an explosive trap. So that's even more reason that he would want to kill that Azure Drake.
Yeah, that is the decisive reason. And that may actually have been what glued Hotform in. Though, kind of artificially. Like, we know Kill Command was basically the only he could play. But on Hotform's side of the board, he's like, wow, he really tried to struggle to defeat my Azure Drake. That must not be a freeze trap.
There's also very little cost to attacking with his weapon there. He's going to want to re-weapon anyway in a future turn.
Yeah.
But Neilyo, this Dr. Boom doesn't look quite as exciting now that the Azure Drake is down on the board. But still probably his best play. That second Unleash the Hounds, not a card he's looking for here. One of the weak cards in this matchup.
Well, Dr. Boom is not only just a good 7-drop, it would also be a good 8-drop. And it's also a big creature that that does extremely well against Rogue, as sapping it really just feels very bad.
Man.
So, I mean, I can't see why there's much thought when it comes to this play. I mean, he definitely just might be doing his thing where he thinks about future possibilities.
Yeah, he has been taking his time on pretty much every turn. This no different. Boom comes down with his boom bots.
Okay, can we see a big Blade Flurry here? Could that be the play?
He could. He could trade the Drake into the Boom, make the weapon, attack into the Creeper, and get a full clear. What other options does he have? He could go for Sap on the Boom, but yeah, it doesn't feel good. Those Boom bots are so annoying, and they might take out the potential low tap and the Drake.
Sometimes they only do 2 damage a pop, but sometimes it's 10.
I mean, there is Azure Drake's on the board, the natural enemy of the Boom bot. And Lothep.
I guess that means we're going to see the Sap.
Yeah, imagine if we do see Lothep, we will also see Sap.
This might really be a disaster here.
It's a little bit of a dangerous line of play, though. It is potentially setting up for... It could be lethal next turn, I believe.
Yeah, depending on the Boom bots.
If Hotform is able to keep both these minions in play...
Good, even though it's 3-face, which seems kind of bad.
Hotform with his hands together.
He's very happy about that.
Please, no. Oh, the natural predator of the Azure Drake comes and defeats it.
Yeah, Neilyo's very relieved there. He knew some trouble was coming his way next turn.
There is the Argent Horse Rider that Neilyo picked up. He would have a removal option even if that Azure Drake had survived, but definitely much more efficient for him to just play this Dr. Boom again this turn.
Absolutely.
But if Hotform does have Tinker Blade Flurry next turn with this Lothep, that's not lethal, is it?
No, I think he needs to pick up another Tinker Oil.
Either another oil or would a deadly poison be enough?
Another oil. He wouldn't be able to cast another oil because he needs to get a new weapon as well.
Oh, I see, yes.
So it would be 1 mana off from filling 2 oils. Deadly poison, prep, oil, flurry. That's quite a bit of damage. But is it enough?
And Shredder.
Well, Dr. Boom back for round 2.
And this is what we were saying, that the difficulty in dealing with Dr. Boom for these rogue decks. Those Boom bots, they did a lot of work. They killed that Azure Drake. And now Hotform uses his preparation for Sprint. He may be looking for perhaps another copy of Sap to get Dr. Boom down back again. Deckhand.
Ooh. Is there a way to even deal with the Boom? He could oil here without the weapon for the trade for the Boom. But that's
I think it might be even simpler than that. I think you could weapon up, play a Deadly Poison, and just Southsea and Lothep into Dr. Boom. But that makes it so your oil next turn is going to be a lot weaker.
Yeah, and then he won't have any chance to lethal Neilyo.
On the flip side, I believe Neilyo might have a kill here even with bad Boombot RNG, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the problem from the perspective of the Rogue is that you can't just be looking to deal with what your opponent plays. You have to be looking to close the game because you're using your health total as a resource, and your opponent is playing Hunter and has Steady Shot, which puts you on a clock.
Yeah, Hotform does make the play that is going to keep him in the game.
And there's a big cat.
Yeah, a really big cat.
So Neilyo counting out what sort of damage he has and what the next few turns are going to look like, I imagine. I would not be surprised to see. Well, it's interesting. The big cat seems good, but
I'm surprised to see just all face, so the boom bots
it doesn't do anything right
threaten
now.
lethal off a Blade Flurry.
So the damage from those, he can do 3 if he plays the Horse Rider and uses his hero power. That's 4, 5, 6, 7, putting Hotform down to, is it?
Yeah,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Where's the 12?
The kill command phase.
Oh, well, I'm not saying including that.
You have to include that.
Well, I'm just kind of for the next turn as well. If he gets to attack again with anything.
I think I like that play the most. I think I like just getting the rogue down so low that you make him sweat if he plans on blade throwing the boom bots.
He does just go with the Highman and the Horse Rider. So the Horse Rider not only does the 2 damage that Steady Shot would do this turn, but also puts a body into play that your opponent has to deal with as well.
Yeah, the Highman quite powerful, and Neilyo already saw 1 sap go.
Wow, sap.
But
very good draw.
Oh, it's most important draw for him.
Yeah, that sap is going to at least stave off Scar for 1 more turn. But
but it's like, how do you stay alive here? I mean, you have the kill command, you have the unleash. I mean, he's going for bot. This is just suicide here.
The Violet Teacher from Hotform's side looks like what he wants to do in order to get a board presence, but we know those 2 copies of Unleash the Hound are really going to punish him.
Yeah, that's likely to be it, no matter where the boom was. But if the boom was killed at 1-1, actually, that would have got away from
that actually could end up going well for Hotform.
Right, because it would deny more damage from the Unleash the Hounds.
I think there's a reasonable chance we see him attack into the Spider to try and clear.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You don't want to leave those 1-1s behind.
Yeah.
But this is leaving Hotform at very, very low health against Unleash and Kill Command.
Boombots just have to kill those 1-1s.
We see Neilyo. Oh, we see a little pump of the fist from Neilyo. I think Naves may have lived.
I think no matter.
Yeah, that is going to be it. So Unleash, Kill Command. Even just with just the Unleash Kill Command, it's enough.
Yeah. And that was a huge game. I mean, Rogue, I think, was slightly favored to win that game, but it just had to win the game because in Conquest format, Neilyo only has the Warrior left. And Hotform not only has to beat that with the Druid, which is pretty likely, but he has to do so with the Rogue deck that we just saw, which is extremely unlikely.
Yeah, this is a pivotal game in this match. Hotform has been saying he really wants to dodge that Warrior with his Rogue, but that's the only deck Neilyo has left.
No, he has to play that matchup. But it is possible that Neilyo is going to draw all of his expensive legendaries once again, like he did in Game 1.
I suppose so. Neilyo is basically on match point here. On the line is a spot for the BlizzCon finals, and also trumping the other regions by putting up that 3rd player from the Asia Pacific on the finals.
And right now, there are no representatives of the Americas region who will be playing on the stage at BlizzCon. If Hotform loses, it's all down to purple in the next match.
Yeah, it's going to be really tough though. But excited to see if Hotform chooses to take the easy or the hard matchup first. What do you guys think?
I think from Hotform perspective, I would imagine that he may go with the Rogue first. Just he knows he has to win with both. He just wants to go in and not necessarily put himself under any undue stress of, okay, maybe I could win this, but he has to get that out of the way in order to win at all.
Right. He could try to get momentum on his side, though. Thinking that Druid win first, or likely Druid win. It's not an automatic win, obviously.
Of course.
And some players even argue that it's not that good for the Druid.
Well, I don't know if momentum matters for much because he still has to win with that Rogue, and that's really the big hurdle.
Yeah, that's serious.
That is the big hurdle. Anyway, guys, we will get back to our games shortly, but before that, let's hear about Hotform and what motivates him to play, what he'll do if he'll win.
So there are things that tend to take me away from pro gaming. I did the law school application and I did pretty well on that, but I've decided to take a year in between. That feels like a really big commitment in my life, and this is a lot of fun. I've enjoyed gaming my entire life, so I want to try this out, experience the world a bit first before I make that big of a decision. I do have plans for the money if I win, not all of it of course, but I want to take a vacation for sure. I think vacation I'm really interested right now is going to Australia. I could just picture like renting a Jeep and kind of driving through the outback with some of my friends. I think that would be such a great experience, so I would love to use the money towards that type of vacation.
All right. right, well, it is match point for Neilyo, and Hotform is the one with the far bigger hurdle ahead.
It's true. He not only has to win 2 games in a row, but has to do one of them in a very, very bad matchup. I believe he estimated his chances of winning the matchup at less than 20%.
Wow, that's really low. I didn't think it's that bad.
That was what he himself said the other night when we were talking to him about his strategy initially going into the matchup with Neilyo. And he felt like it was such a bad matchup that it was crucial that he dodged it in the next selection phase. And now there's no way he can. He has to get through that warrior.
Yeah, but I think the biggest thing in that matchup is whether or not the warrior draws the sufficient amount of weapons. Because if the even Fire War Axe gets easily 2 for 1, kills the agent, kills the front half of the Shredder, but if there's no weapons to be found, those early minions might chip up enough to be able to end the game before we get to those expensive warrior legendaries.
There's the flip side of that. There could just be the 4-weapon draw, which turns out to be maybe even worse than the no-weapon draw.
Well, in this matchup, it's actually not clear that that's true, because
there's so few minions, right?
Right, the Rogue deck doesn't have that many minions and so much chef, but it looks like Hotform does choose to go with his Druid deck. He wants to, perhaps get on the board here, get a little bit of momentum, and try to go into his final game, at least having won the last one.
I believe this is extremely one-sided for the Druid. Maybe even so as it is in reverse with the Rogue. Not just because it's Druid, which is traditionally good, but we have to remember Hotform is playing a double BGH Harrison Jones Druid here.
It's true.
He's really, really teched against an already good matchup.
Yeah, but I also tend to favor the Druid, but I've actually heard some players, like KitKats who is known for his warrior gameplay, actually favors the warrior over the Druid because of the recent expansion that gave cards like Bash to the warrior.
Yeah, Bash is a huge deal. Bash is a card that allows you to deal with a card like Piloted Shredder, a card like Darnassus Aspirant, and also Darnassus Aspirant, while it makes the deck stronger in a lot of matchups, it's not actually necessarily that good against Warrior because it makes cards like Fiery War Axe that otherwise weren't particularly strong against the Druid deck a very, very good card.
All right, well, Neilyo is certainly very happy with that opening hand, but Hotform's is pretty good as well. Yep. He's just missing that big threat that he is likely to play on turn 3.
We see a little sigh from Hotform as we once again get into Neilyo's rope on turn 1. He's making the most use of the time he has available. And we've talked about this a little bit before. It's not that Neilyo has a particularly difficult decision this turn. He's not debating, okay, should I coin Armor Up, should I coin Armor Smith? He only has the 75 seconds each turn. He's planning out his turns in advance. He's thinking, okay, if this happens, I want to do this, and ensuring that he has a game plan moving forward.
Well, you talk about how he actually has options to do things in this turn 1, but in his opening warrior game against the mage, he went first. He literally doesn't have a 1-drop in his deck.
Right.
And Hotform was kind of giggling a little bit like, what's going on? Realizing that fact.
Yeah, I also think that it's possible that one reason why Neilyo is taking such a long time is to calm down his nerves, because we have seen him react fairly strongly to some situations that have been unfortunate for him.
So that Darnassus Aspirant for Hotform, still nothing to follow up. Neilyo, he has a couple of options here, actually. That Bash is a card that he could choose to play this turn with the coin to potentially keep Hotform off of that mana acceleration.
I don't think it's that important. I think what's really important is that you get the Death Spite out as early as possible because it activates not only the Execute, but the Acolyte as well.
Definitely. If I were in Neilyo's shoes, I'd probably just play the Armorsmith this turn.
I would just not coin this turn. That's the only requirement for me.
Yes, coin is a very good card in this. The way that this dynamic works out, the Death Spite, more powerful when it can come down earlier and is more likely to kill the minions that are in play.
I wouldn't hate it though, like coining out the Bash here. We can see that there's nothing coming. Nothing bad is going to happen if he leaves up the Aspirant. But Druid having that extra mana crystal, it can be threatening. Turn 3, Piloted Shredder, not something you want to see.
And Dr. Boom, that's not something that Hotform can play this turn.
It's going to be 1 man off 2 turns in a row now.
Yep.
Yeah, looks like it. Unless he picks up a second in a raid.
So Hotform would have loved for that to be perhaps Emperor Thaurissan. But
I think we're probably going to see a Wrath for 1. There's not many minions that are important and die to Wrath in this deck, and you often just need a cycle, especially in this case where you don't really have anything to play if something goes wrong next turn.
I really like that. Considering his hand too, he wants to get to his lords as soon as possible. He does go for a Wrath for T3 instead.
Oh, wow.
That is a bit surprising to me.
Yeah, I'm pretty surprised to see the Wrath for 3 rather than Wrath for 1 and just attack with both things. Attack with his hero power and his aspirant.
Yeah,
I'm actually surprised enough that I wouldn't mind just a bash here.
I mean, this looks to Neilyo like maybe Hotform's trying really hard to protect this aspirant from any sort of removal, including execute, because that's really the reason you'd make that play.
Right.
I mean, you would be giving your opponent armor for shield slam, which is another possible reason that you wouldn't want to just throw all of that into the armor smith there.
Yep. Drawing that second bash, I think it makes it more likely that he's just going to bash that minion here to keep that coin for maybe to play one of those big legendaries that he will eventually draw, like Ysera for turn 8. It's quite huge.
Yeah, the Druid, despite Big Game Hunter, has a little bit of difficulty dealing with some of those big minions in the Warrior deck, and the ability to get something like down like Justicar Trueheart early and be able to keep getting your armor total up is a big deal. So now Hotform down to 4 mana, so Innervate again can't play Dr. Boom or Ancient of Glories. This is... Oh, and you see Neilyo literally just pump his fists here as Hotform does nothing but hero power.
Very well in this.
He is in a
what
tremendous
is supposed to be a
position.
bad matchup.
Hotform has some powerful plays for later on, but turn 4 hero power pass, that is truly dreadful.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen the swipe face on turn 4 a few times in this tournament. Why didn't it happen there?
I imagine he may be looking for another option for Swipe, perhaps.
Oh, I see. Swipe, though, is actually often an almost worthless card against Warrior, as everything is way bigger or way smaller, and often you don't want to do 1 damage to like an Acolyte on the back end.
Yeah, Swipe and Wrath are your best cards in Druid against a lot of aggressive decks, but against a deck that is primarily full of large minions like Control Warrior, both of them are really weak. That's part of the reason I was so surprised that Hotform made that play that he did with the full 3 damage Wrath rather than trying to just dig for another card.
Absolutely. Neilyo here with a few options. He could Acolyte, he could play the Deathspite preemptively, but that's unlikely because he knows that Hotform is running a Harrison Jones. So risking that is not something
if you play Deathspite, you have to go face.
Yeah, absolutely. And going for face there, not so valuable. Hotform choosing to go with the lore before the Dr. Boom. In many matchups you want to go for the Boom first, but he realized that Neilyo is playing Big Game Hunter, has those executes, so getting those extra cards to have better chances to having powerful turn 6 is a reasonable play.
Yeah, because if he had just played Dr. Boom, he in his hand currently has nothing to do the next turn. Dr. Boom may be the most immediately impactful play, but it's more important for Hotform's chances to win that he's able to develop his board for the next several turns as well.
Yeah, and
this is actually a pretty tough play. Maybe one of the cleanest ways to deal with it is Fire Warrack's Bash, but with 2 Deathspite in hands now, you really want to use one of them.
Yeah, but how do you? That would mean that he would have to either execute or use the front half of the Belcher.
What if he just Deathspites and just leaves the 5-1 on the board?
It's going to straight for the Belcher. That's just a little bit weak.
The Belcher doesn't like that play.
No, the Belcher does not approve. Use the Bash. I think it's fair to just go for the Fiery Warrax and use the Bash, but the Fiery Warrax in his hand is also going to be fairly worthless for later on. So getting some use out of it now is an okay thing.
So he chooses to do it in this order because it does preserve the armor from the bash. If he'd bashed first, he would have taken the damage and lost that armor, which is important for cards like Shield Slam later on.
Right. And it's generally just good practice.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's the other side
that
doesn't
is
really offer an
huge
advantage.
draw for Hotform there. The Emperor Tharson with 6 other cards in hand.
Yeah, that Ancient of Lore drop paid off.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Really, really well.
And it's interesting, too, because Neilyo chose to use his coin to play the Sludge Belcher. He could have just played Deathspite and attacked the face, which would have given him a clean way to just clear off a 5/5 on the following turn, and then play the Sludge Belcher as well. Now, Neilyo still has just a bunch of weapons, and he's facing down this Emperor without a clean way to deal with it. He doesn't have that bash anymore.
Yeah, he has to use either the Execute or the Belcher now to get rid of that. And
I like the Belcher a lot more, because you can play the Shield Maiden for tempo, and you still have the 1/2 taunt to activate your Execute for actually a big minion that would likely come next turn.
But do you play for tempo with this hand? I mean, it seems like he's kind of running out of stuff.
Is he? He's got the Acolyte.
That's going to help. That kind of makes it maybe a tiny bit better to potentially equip the Deathspite here to try to get that Whirlwind effect.
Deathspite and armor.
Particularly given the Emperor from Hotform, I think that you do need to try and play for some kind of tempo here, because you're just going to fall behind. It's not that you're trying to tempo out your opponent. You're trying to get ahead of them before they get ahead of you.
Well, we see just that there. Hotform with considerably more options.
Thanks to Emperor Tharson. Oh dear.
What a
Swipe
turn.
and Azure Drake takes out Neilyo's entire board. That tempo he was looking for is now gone. And then Harrison Jones, not a card that's very good against the Druid deck.
Very good against the Rogue deck,
You
by the way.
You cannot Harrison Jones your opponent's claws.
Maybe that's where that 20% came from.
It could
Maybe.
be. Could be. I imagine it's very likely we'll see Deathspite take this out and then perhaps Acolyte of Pain come down. But now this game, which not long ago looked to be heavily in Neilyo's favor, is kind of slipping away from him.
Absolutely.
I really don't like the Acolyte drop, though. I feel you need that card to actually get something more relevant.
Yeah, so he could wait with it, just in case there is a Keeper of the Crow waiting. The Deathspite likely to swing again on the following turn, and then you can secure the extra draw with the Acolyte.
But at the same time, given his opponent's use of Emperor Tharson, I don't know that he wants to... If his opponent did play Keeper the next turn, that significantly reduces the amount of options that he has, and I think that Neilyo is going to be looking for more possible tools himself, maybe expensive card, but he does choose to save the Acolyte for next turn. Suppose he does with the Execute, so he's guaranteed to have at least some sort of play to go along with the Acolyte as well.
It's true.
Our Ancient of War comes down. The reason we see Big Taunts go into the second charge of a Deathspite is because it kind of denies the residual Execute play. Here, if he wants to execute that Ancient of War, he actually just has to take 5 damage by attacking into it.
Neilyo does have the second copy of Deathspite or the Fiery War Axe, which he could play to replace his Deathspite, which also would trigger the Death Rattle and allow him to execute without taking damage.
Actually is possible. He could Acolyte, then play the other's Deathspite, then execute to save himself 5. But is a charge of Deathspite worth 5 HP and a potential tempo loss, because otherwise he could gain something that he could play with the Acolyte?
Well, it's not even really a charge of Deathspite, because you would attack with the Deathspite that's already in play.
I actually like that a lot, especially, or like another reason for that is that if there was a Harrison Jones in Hotform's hand, it would have most likely come down on the previous turn. So
he could even play Acolyte and either the Deathspite or the War Axe. Yeah, it looks like he's going with exactly that play, playing the Deathspite to trigger the Death Rattle of his original Deathspite, which allows him to draw a card of Acolyte of Pain and trigger the Execute to kill the Ancient of War without actually having to attack into it. So really heads up play from Neilyo.
And no respect for Harrison Jones there.
no, because of that, Deathspite is the best card he can use it on, and Hotform didn't use it on the previous Deathspite, and there was only one card draw that happened after that.
All right, well, Neilyo he wants to find Brawl now. What he's looking for here against this board.
It's a pretty good one, too.
It's okay, but I mean, look at Hotform's hand. He has Force of Nature plus Savage Roar. This board is threatening to do so much damage, and
The thing is that, like, Neilyo's drawn 2 cards here, and that's a really big deal.
well, he drew 2 cards thanks to that hitting his Acolyte. He only has the 1 charge, the 2 charges left in the Deathspite, so he wouldn't be able to actually activate. He chose not to attack last turn.
Yep, picks up a shield block, but he's still in so much trouble. What is the card that he would hope to get if we use Shield Slam?
The thing is, Shield Slam would be good. Even if he did find something like Brawl, I think he's actually still in a lot of trouble. Those 3 minions.
Shield Maiden up, so he has another turn left in this game.
I'll take the hit.
All right, so Neilyo is at 32 health, which sounds like a lot, but Hotform has...
That's 10.
That's enough.
10
yeah.
plus 6.
I believe that's actually
plus
enough.
16.
Yeah.
Oh, and the Druid of the Claw plus another 6. That's like 34, I think.
I think he's a mana short of the Druid of the Claw.
One mana short, but it is still enough.
I believe Force of Nature plus Savage Roar is 14, the board is 10, another 6.
16, so it's
16, so 30.
Oh, so he's 1 damage off. It's actually 1 off.
Yeah. And then Alistraza comes down.
The boom, but could do it.
Yeah,
I know if we did our math right. 16 plus 14.
How much
plus,
is that?
It's 31, I believe. I believe this is 31 damage. So I believe he is actually 1 damage off lethal.
Yeah, he is. He could get a boom bot to phase 4. So that would do it.
That's a little optimistic, I think.
But I mean, in case that it doesn't go to phase, you can just use a Treant on the Shield Maiden to finish it off. Wow.
Boombot, do it! Do it! No lethal.
And 1 damage off lethal for Hotform. He still has a really impressive board here. That Alistraza is has to come down.
Yeah.
But even then, look at Hotform's board. He has the Dr. Boom and a bunch of damage and that Druid Claw in his hand. He's still, despite not quite having lethal, still
Yeah, he's still commanding
in a really good
but
spot
particularly because BGH just challenges Alistraza. It challenges more than the entire turn, really.
I mean, with the Dr. Boom there, the Shield Maiden, even with the weapon, can't take out Dr. Boom.
No, it'll have to take out the 2/3.
Without attacking into Dr. Boom directly, which is just 7 damage. It's so much.
I guess you would consider just going face with the 5, but that doesn't feel too great either. There is another consideration here. If perhaps you play the Gromash and armor up, or play the Armor Smith.
Whoa.
That's,
Gromash
that's
Armor
pretty
Smith.
risky.
Grom, Armor Smith attack with the weapon.
And, yeah.
It's an interesting play. It's so
I don't-
risky, though.
Yeah, I can't really see. All right, so, yeah. Neilyo does find the...
He has lethal here with a Boombot.
Once again.
Once again, potential Boombot lethal.
Savage Roar would make it an actual lethal, as would Force of Nature.
Well, how about another wild
Revise, add on.
Well,
to
another
Wild Growth again.
try at either of those cards is going to be a fun experiment here.
See if he gets it.
Oh,
he
there's
gets
Savage
it.
Roar.
Wow, there
There
he
it
goes.
is.
Yeah.
So Cat comes down, Cat is for fight, innervate Savage Roar, and that is lethal damage for Hotform, who forces a game 5 against Neilyo.
I believe Hotform did about 50 damage over the course
So
of 2
much
turns.
damage, yeah. Neilyo was at 32, and then he was suddenly at 1, then he was at 15, then he was dead. That really showcases the explosive power of the combo Druid deck.
All right, well, the dreams are still alive for both players, though more vividly for Neilyo here, as he has the Control Warrior against the Rogue. Now, Control Warrior is normally just going to do very well against any Rogue deck. On one hand, you can just armor up, and often in that game, you can just fatigue out the Rogue. Often you can just burn through every single card in the Rogue deck before they
you
can
actually,
kill you.
as the Warrior player, you don't even have to worry about the Rogue's life total all that much. You're not really trying to kill the Rogue quickly. All you need to do is keep removing every single minion on the board, and that way the Rogue will eventually only have spells.
The power of Rogue really lies in their ability to take a tempo advantage against minion-based strategies with things like Backstab, things like SI Agent. Warrior doesn't care about that. Warrior cares about killing what you have and just staying alive until it dominates the board with big things.
The Warrior simply has more removal than the Rogue has minions.
And just the hero power, armor up, it eventually puts the Warrior out of range, especially with Justicar Trueheart and Shield Maiden and Shield Block. That big oil damage combo that we've seen win so many games this weekend, it just is not effective against Warrior.
Yep, quite a match yet to come. I'm sure you guys have many opinions about the players in the tournament, but we had a chance to ask Hotform what he thought about some of his competition.
The friendliness of the other players, I think, would be the most surprising part. The other players, although we're opponents, it feels really like comrades. When you're out there, you know, you're just hanging out, waiting for things to happen, you're discussing strategies, and you're a little guarded about your own tech choices and those kinds of things, but when you're just there hanging out, it feels really like you're with a bunch of friends. So I think that was surprising to me. I thought some people would be more tense about it, but it's a really great feeling the way it worked out.
The final game of this match. One player moves through to the BlizzCon finals. Well, the other one goes to BlizzCon too, but doesn't quite get to play on the same level.
Yeah, and will Hotform be able to become the first representative of the Americas region, or will Neilyo move on to be the third representative of APAC? Let us know on Twitter there with hashtags AMWin or APACWin. And yeah, I mean, Hotform has said that he thinks it's going to be a very tough game going in.
Yeah, I mean, these players, again, they played against each other in their opening game, and Hotform ended up triumphing, but it was a very close 3-2, and here we are again in the similar spot where it is a 2-2 score. But Neilyo has the match advantage, even though this Warrior deck has failed to produce a win in 2 tries now. In fact, it's been his only losing deck. It seems like it's pretty hard to go 0-3.
This is the match where his Warrior deck is at its strongest, because it really just interacts with the Rogue deck in a way that the Rogue deck is hoping to avoid. So Hotform Violet Teacher, one of the cards that can actually generate a reasonable number of minions that can give him a strong start that he needs to put pressure on the warrior.
One thing we actually haven't seen from Neilyo's warrior deck is a whirlwind effect outside of the Death Spite. Often warrior decks do include a whirlwind, or more recently Revenge.
Has been popular, yes.
Just somewhat popular. But we have not seen it in Neilyo's list, and that repetitive damage of the 1/1s isn't as easy to control for this type of deck if that's the case, because you have the weapon hits, you have the shield slams, you have the executes, but these are not things you really want to use on 1/1 creatures that can just grind you down.
He does have Brawl and he does have Baron Geddon, but those are a bit slower, so it's possible that if Hotform is able to get out a quick Violet Teacher, that could be a road to victory.
Does he actually have Brawl?
I believe he does. I believe we've seen him cast Brawl. He may not. It's possible, but I thought I had. It's a very
We've seen it draw 0 times today.
Today, at least. Yeah, that's true.
On the first day, I'm not even sure we had an appearance, but that would be very weird if that is the case.
It would be surprising, because that is particularly if you are playing Control Warrior in a world you expect decks like Secret Paladin. It's one of your strongest cards. We do see the Baron Geddon in Neilyo's opening hand, much like in the first game where we saw Baron Geddon among many other expensive legendaries.
Right, but in this hand, at least you have some things that you can play. Armor Smith on 2, while it doesn't have as much of an impact as it does against more aggressive decks with smaller minions with far less health, it's still a presence, and he continues that presence with the Acolyte. He has the Bash to often trigger against one of the 3 or 4 drop creatures in the Rogue deck. We mentioned that most of the Rogue creatures are vulnerable to that 3 damage breakpoint, with the SI7 being vulnerable, with the Shredder being vulnerable. But really, it's going to be about this Violet Teacher. I think if you can pick up a prep and maybe some other cards you can play alongside it, things can get a little bit out of control.
Yeah, the hand is not looking too bad for Hotform. He does have an Azure Drake. That low tap can also be a key moment in the game. If he manages to get some kind of bot going to go for that low tap to prevent the brawl.
Yeah, being able to generate a board and then protect it with Lothep against removal effects is one of Hotform's strongest roads to victory. Neilyo, again, sort of in the tank on turn 2. I imagine we'll see him come out eventually and play this Armor Smith, but
well, the thing is, the Armor Smith doesn't actually challenge a single creature in the Rogue deck.
It's true.
But on the other, he might just be saving it for a turn where he can trigger Whirlwind effects to get additional value out of the armor. So even if he does an Armor Smith here, I think that is a very fair way of playing.
Certainly, he could just choose to armor up. The health gain from armor up and being able to save your Armor Smith for later are both pretty relevant in this game. Yeah, Armor Smith does come down, and even just getting a little bit of damage on the Rogue can be relevant. They do, as we were saying, use their life total as a resource. While it's not a matchup where it generally comes down to that sort of thing, having the ability to pressure them is still valuable.
Yeah, Eviscerate a reasonable card to draw here. Not too bad. It allows him to remove some early threat from Neilyo's side.
Hotform attacking into the Armor Smith, he does have that Deadly Poison in his hand. So
yeah, most likely he's going to re-weapon Deadly Poison and go for the kill on the Armor Smith. And Neilyo, realizing this, might choose not to Acolyte of Pain. But now that he's got a second one, he's probably going to choose the Acolyte of Pain.
Yeah, definitely. You don't want to hold out the 2 Acolytes in your hand.
Yeah. What now? Also, with that Armor Smith in play, killing the Acolytes not only allows Neilyo to dig to further cards, but it does get him a little bit of armor each time they do take damage.
And you absorb another 3 damage.
Yeah. And in a matchup where the Rogue deck does have a pretty limited amount of damage that it can deal, if you're able to remove its minions, that can add up and be very important.
I wonder.
Neilyo once again going down to the rope before making his play. He could choose the Acolyte on the middle or the one on the right side.
Which do you think he'll play?
I think he's going to play the one from the middle.
All right. And he does. Good call.
Hey, speak to me.
All right. Well,
and,
there goes a Shredder, which is not too bad. You might be able to play that next turn and save a higher mana turn for a Violet Teacher play.
The Shredder, one of the best cards against Warrior, because even though the weapon deals with the Shredder, but the Shredder still gets that 9 damage or so in, depending on what pops out of it.
I really like the kill on the Armor Smith. We kind of predict that he'd kill the Acolyte. I think we've just been seeing too much Patron Warrior in the last few weeks. The Acolyte is not as threatening of a card in the control type of Warrior because of the lack of self-damage effects on your own minions. And leaving the Acolyte up Actually, when you see a warrior play an acolyte that seems vulnerable, often they're doing that because they have to. So if you don't give them a draw next turn, they might just have another bad turn. And I actually, like, the more I see this situation, the more clear it is that killing the Armor Smith ends up being the better route.
It is true that without additional activators like Inner Rage, like Whirlwind, these Acolytes are unlikely to get Neilyo multiple cards, and by killing the Armor Smith first, he's able to also deny him additional armor from those minions.
It is possible to get punished by that if there was a Cruel Taskmaster in
Yes.
Neilyo's hand, but I don't think... I haven't even seen any Cruel Tasks from Neilyo. Does he play that card?
We talked about seeing it.
I believe we have. I believe we've seen one.
I believe I have I've also seen it, but at the same time, there's been a few warrior decks.
We've watched a lot of
that is
games
true.
of Warrior this week.
And down comes the piloted Shredder, and Neilyo's still without a weapon.
Yeah, Bash is going to answer this very well. Slam, though, seems a bit clunky here.
Yeah.
I think what we'll probably see is Bash and Neilyo hoping that a 2-health minion comes out.
No, he
Or
wants a
attack
2-3.
minion, rather. A 2-attack
Or
minion is what I meant.
2-1.
Yeah, 2-1 would be
2-1,
pretty
yeah.
good.
If a 2-1 comes out, if there's
Actually,
a...
I think he's quite happy slamming here just to cycle through his deck. I think a
Perhaps.
1-3 might be ideal, actually.
Though the slam there, I think that keeping the slam to possibly use with the other Bash to kill something like an Azure Drake may be what he's looking to do.
I think this Bash might be a little bit stronger. Just use it first, because one very likely outcome is the 2-3, and in that case he could slam the 2-3 first and then use the Acolyte to finish it off.
So he gets
Drawn two
the
cards.
best of both worlds, really.
Actually, the best place to wait and then do that.
Yeah. Every time, as soon as the rope starts burning, he goes for his move.
And there's a 3-2, so not what Neilyo was hoping
You
for.
might still go for the Bash here. Or the slam.
It's
Yeah,
possible.
He might do it, yeah.
Yes, looks like he wants to try to find an opportunity to get an extra card with that Acolyte. Removes that from the board.
I believe Azure Drake is going to hit the board here. Again, you have such nice plays with the Violet Teacher, but the more you wait, the higher the payout, but also the higher the risk. But considering it's such a bad matchup, I feel like the risk portion of this is fairly irrelevant. I think the only way you're winning is by taking risks.
Yeah, he is going for it here, and he just saw a slam and a Bash, no weapons, so he thinks that it might be even difficult for Hotform to remove that piece right now.
Yeah.
Might be, but Shield Slam says otherwise.
Yeah, it's gonna do it.
Shield Slam and actually Geddon is going to counter the play quite a bit.
He can't get in this turn.
No, but next turn, the 1-1s that could start grinding down the Warriors' health pool are really not going to be able to accomplish that.
True.
Shield Slam fairly obvious here. He's still going to have 5 mana remaining, so we could see the shield block and armor up, or the Armor Smith maybe.
The Armor Smith is kind of nice to potentially challenge these 1-1s if he isn't certain to play the Baron Geddon next turn.
Also, he could just draw first with the Shield Slam if he's going to do the or the Shield Bash if he's going to do the Shield Slam and Armor Smith play.
How about just bashing that Violet Teacher right now in preparation for the Geddon for next turn?
That's not bad either.
It's reasonable, though. If your opponent does play a large minion, then you are sort of committed to playing the Baron
That's
Geddon
true.
and then potentially attack into it. Like if he played Lothar.
He might get into trouble for that.
Looks like he doesn't want to maximize the amount of armor he's going to get throughout the course of the game. He's probably already decided that he's going to try to fatigue the Rogue out, which, yeah, it's a viable strategy.
It
turns
absolutely
out to work a lot of the time.
Only 2 minions remaining in Hotform's hand right now.
And the backstab plus one of these minions able to take out the Armor Smith.
Makes the Geddon play a little less attractive too.
Yeah, this means that Baron Geddon is not super exciting. And this is a matchup where you'll often see that Grommash Hellscream just uses a removal effect. In many matchups, Grom is most effective as a finisher. You just do a big bound burst damage when you damage it with something like a Death's Bite Death Rattle. But against Rogue, again, you were just able to remove all of their threats and frequently just fatigue them out because they do have so many cards that are so low impact. They're strong tempo cards, but not strong value cards.
I really feel like you have to shield block here because if you get a Death's Bite, it's basically the nuts. The game is almost over.
Almost. And if he doesn't get it, the Shield Slam is still quite alright.
I wonder.
Certainly a reasonable option here. And again, he does have potentially that Grom to use on the Azure Drake if he does choose to wait on it.
I just feel if he gets into here, it can turn out to be a disaster. We know it will turn out to be a disaster.
It will not go well for him, it's true. So shield block, he finds a Shield Maiden, does just use the Shield Slam and armor up. So now Neilyo, his health is going way up, and Hotform still just with a hand of pretty low impact cards. Another Azure Drake is a nice draw, though. It does give him the ability to dig deeper into his deck to find more.
I feel like the Loatheb is stronger because if you Azure Drake, you can just die to a Death Spite.
It's true. It either does Death Spite or the 8 mana. It does have 4 health, so Grom would actually take it out quite easily.
Oh, that's Taskmaster.
Yeah.
It does exist.
Yeah, confirmed.
Oh, it's a tough play, though.
Shield Maiden armor up, maybe?
Yeah, I think I like the Shield Main armor up.
The Chromash doesn't seem to accomplish much here.
No, you need a little bit more mana for it to work.
So, once again, Neilyo taking his time.
I imagine that he may actually even be saving that Baron-Geddon to play alongside Bash to kill a larger minion in a single turn. He hasn't had a great opportunity to play it where it would dominate the board, and when you do get to 10 mana and you can play both of those at the same time, you're able to kill bigger minions at once.
He could have set that up earlier, as Saviz had noted, against the Vile Teacher, and I kind of wonder how that line of play would have turned out. But he's still winning considerably, so I guess it's not.
He does choose just to play Baron.
Interesting.
Okay.
That is a dangerous play.
Well, this does leave Loatheb at a point where he will be able to potentially remove it with the Bash next turn.
I find that place slightly strange.
I
well,
think that
actually, Hotform can start pushing for damage. He can
he
do
can eviscerate
Southsea
this.
Deckhand. He can do Sap. He can do. Oh wow, even more things now.
I kind of feel like that was the opening that Hotform needed. Right now, he's finally going to have a big minion, stick to the board, remove the threat from his opponent, and gonna extend his lead.
And we do see Eviscerate come down, so Hotform doesn't want the Baron-Geddon to come back with that Sap. And 5 damage comes in.
Do you think the 2 from the Southsea Deckhand is much of a risk at this point?
I think that Hotform may be a little bit worried about just extending too much into a brawl. It's generally not a card that's good in this matchup, and with the Tinker Sharpsword Oil in his hand, that Southsea Deckhand can represent a lot of burst damage if he needs it.
Yep, probably going to keep it for the combination with the oil.
And there's Death Spite.
Yeah, he's able to Death Spite and Bash to clear the board. And yeah, still armor up again, gain some more armor from the Bash. He's in for more armor. You basically have a full toolbox. Whatever you
Death Spite may be the nail in his coffin here. That is a huge draw.
He could actually even set up lethal here. He's not going to do it. No way you go for that kind of risk. But he could play the Death Spite and bash his opponent's face to put him down to low enough for the Chrome to Cruel Taskmaster.
Face.
Wow. Yeah, that's
it would
actually
get the job done.
And he can actually still armor up. He could go to 38. Is there a real risk? Like, what could Hotform actually have? It looks like he just goes for the conservative line of play. I don't blame him. It is flashy to try and two-turn kill him here, but you don't need to do anything like that.
Absolutely unnecessary to go for that kind of play. Hotform picking up a sprint.
Yeah, one good draw deserves another. Hotform picks up sprint and 4 more cards, but again, he doesn't have that many strong cards. He can draw as many cards as he wants with that second sprint, but he is as a card in a rogue deck.
It is. I would be
It's not unusual as a card in Hotform's deck.
It's true. He has played a lot of big game hunters in all of his decks, really.
Yeah.
It's so tempting with just Grom here, because that's the bigger minion and you have the time to play it. But if he went for that play, he would be
good.
That might be a game-deciding moment right here.
The thing is, we talked about using Grom for removal. That's kind of the case when you go back and forth, but you kind of want to start thinking about closing out the game.
I don't know that we've actually seen Big Game Hunter in Hotform's hand.
I believe we have not.
I don't remember seeing
So this is actually Grom is a difficult minion. He does choose to just play things safe, go with the Shield Maiden armor up.
Wow.
Yeah, it looks like he's just going to go
sprint.
Big burst damage here.
Yeah.
Also
probably
clears off the Shield Maiden with the flurry I have to imagine will come down.
Probably wants to deal as much damage to his opponent's face as possible. Carefully sequencing there, going with the deckhand first.
Whoa, we've broken through the armor!
Yeah, finally, first blood!
Yeah.
All the way down to 26 after getting attacked for 17 in one turn. We do have the Taskmaster here that can easily clean off. It's possible we just see Grom go to the face.
I think because nothing's been sapped this game, if you play the Grom, the most likely action from your opponent following turn. It seems like a good plan unless you actually know for sure. I mean, it's not impossible as these players have played against together against
9 out of 10 players. Yeah, 9 out of 10 players would go for the Grom here if they don't.
And he was very cagey about it, and I have to imagine this is why.
Yeah. Wow.
This is going to be a big swing. This could be a defining moment here.
Could be. Hotform still has a few more minions left in his deck.
He's going to prep sprint before the BGH.
Yep, Shredder would probably be the best possible draw.
Shredder would not be playable.
Oh, no, actually. A 3-drop, yeah.
SI
Agent. Yep, that's better.
All right. Yeah, and the big game hunter takes out Grom and SI Agent, and now Hotform's on the board with a reasonable amount of minions. He does have a second Tinkers and Blade Flare left in his hand. That can do horribly exciting when you know your opponent has drawn a lot of cards and still has sap left.
You have the clear brawl away one minion, cruel task execute.
It is an option. It is. This is a matchup where your opponent doesn't have very many minions, and the only way you
enough. If you use brawl against 2, you probably just secure the loss against the next turn after considering you just sprinted.
What's a better opportunity to play a brawl? The rogue actually deploy all that many minions into the board.
I think if you play a Sludge Belcher, you're getting sapped, and Hotform's playing a 3rd minion.
Maybe.
I wouldn't.
Just clear their board. He does choose to go Sludge Belcher.
To close out the game before you die to fatigue, I think.
It is.
To be, well, not even like necessarily sap that. He could just go for backsteps and fan of knives with that blood. A lot of options for Hotform right now.
Yeah, so he does go with prep, Tinker, Sharp Sword, Oil before.
I wonder if he's going to cycle a pan of knives.
Yeah, there's a heal bot.
Is nice. You might not die to fatigue or just a weapon draw here.
14 going to Neilyo's face right here.
3rd creature. Ooh. Give me that brawl.
Well, we of course have the information that it's in there, but if you Hotform, the game is...
You have much more potential damage if you hold back on the spell damage for next turn. For his own hand, regardless of what the warrior might have.
That's also true.
Dr. Boom would have been good a little while ago, but not so exciting.
Monster execute and even armor up afterwards.
That's right.
That does. And Belcher for 5 with the Blood Mage.
It does.
Actually, Hotform has a really good chance here.
Yeah, this is a game that went from looking like Neilyo was running away with it to very, very close.
Hotform with those double sprints has been able to stay in the game, even though the card value for a warrior is higher.
These last few that you just lose, and your dream to play at the BlizzCon finals is over.
And Neilyo does go with the brawl here, so I think he's going to make the Cruel Taskmaster execute play. Yeah.
Executes just to deal.
We have the Blood Mage fan into a heal bot.
And that backstep deals with the Cruel Taskmaster quite easily.
Yeah, just deploying more minions, get that guy off the board, push for damage with these guys. The belt the Baron get.
Did he?
He sapped the Baron. No, he executed.
No, he eviscerated.
He does,
Yeah, he
he does
eviscerated
have
with the strike.
No,
So there
you're
should
right.
be one sap remaining. Some players only play one, but I would expect Hotform to be playing two in this situation. But wow, this is going
Hotform
so
felt like he was a huge underdog going into this matchup, but right now he looks like he's ahead.
Yeah.
But the Dr. Boom's still quite powerful, and Hotform doesn't have that extra bit of damage to actually lethal Neilyo just yet.
Well, I think his other cards eviscerate, so
That would do it, I guess.
So Neilyo thinking through what possible options he has here.
Well, Dr. Boom and Sludge Belcher.
Chooses to go Sludge Belcher. Armor's
I think if he gets eviscerate, it's over, because he can do Blade Flurry for 5, Fan for 2, and then eviscerate for 5.
7. Exactly lethal with that.
He might still draw it. He might still draw it, because the Fan might draw Eviscerate. I think he has
Blade Flurry.
Eviscerate and Sap in his deck right now. It's a 50-50 chance to win the
He had
game.
one card left. He just almost out of cards.
Well, that's going to be an Eviscerate.
I'm out
Right?
of arms.
Is it? Oh, it's a sap.
It is the
a
other
Sap.
Sap.
Okay. So,
So
I
it's
guess he
Sap.
did use Eviscerate, so I guess I miscounted.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
then
obviously you play 2 Eviscerates, so both of those have to
Hotform
play.
gets Neilyo down to 3 life. That's going to be it. Neilyo has...
Doomsayer!
No,
No,
Doomsayer's
it still
not
doesn't do it.
enough.
No, it still does not do
No,
it.
there's nothing that
He has
Neilyo
to
can
armor
do.
up, go to 1, and the Rogue actually kills him with the hero power if that happens.
That is true. The Rogue Hero, but even if they're to be able to end the game with 0 cards in his deck and a sap
Hotform
in
felt
his
like
hand.
he was such an underdog. He felt like his only way to win this match was to dodge this particular matchup, and he's on the verge of winning it. There's nothing Neilyo can do.
There's literally nothing you can do. Hotform has won this game. We have our first player from the America region to qualify for the BlizzCon finals.
I mean, maybe Hotform takes mercy on him. He